He is risen. He is risen indeed. I remember the first time my brother Paul brought what we would have called this more liturgical tradition to our church in Meridian. It became a part of our worship on Easter Sunday mornings, and in fact, it became my part of worship on Easter Sunday mornings, as I got to make the proclamation, He is risen. He is risen indeed. There is something more than wonderful about being a part of a collective church, the church around the world, and knowing that we are part of what God is doing in the world through us, through His church. Humor me for a moment, if you will. Close your eyes. Now, the picture I want you to see is the earth in space. You see it hanging there. Now, turn out the light. You see the earth in total darkness. Next, as it begins to rotate slowly from your right to your left on its slightly tilted axis, you see from top to bottom, north to south, the slightest sliver of light on the right, in the east. Just a fingernail at first as it begins to show a curve. The planet is awakening with the brightness of the morning sun from top to bottom. As it continues to rotate, the entire side facing you becomes visible, and in each community, the same message is ringing out today. He is risen. He is risen indeed. Thank you for doing that with me. The Bible tells us that for God so loved the world, God so loved the people of the world that He gave His one and only Son, so that anyone who believes, anyone who hears the good news of the gospel and believes, will not live a perishing life. That we will not live in our guilt and shame, in our anxiety and insecurity, in our loneliness and unforgiveness, but that we would know an everlasting and abundant life that is available to us now when we believe. It goes on in the Bible. God did not send His Son into the world to condemn us, to point out all the ways we fail or miss the mark. He came to reconcile us, to rescue us, to bring us back into right relationship with the Father, to turn us from darkness to light. A relationship that allows us to sense and know the presence of God, the God of creation, in our normal everyday work, in our normal everyday lives. Resurrection Sunday comes each year to remind us that He is risen. He is risen indeed. To remind us of His great love for us, that God was willing to send His Son, and that Jesus was willing to suffer and die on a cruel cross, that we might know the fullness of His love for us and the fullness of life as we love one another. For this is life eternal, that we might grow in our knowledge and love of the Father. The world will know that we are followers of Christ, not by the perfect lives that we live, but by how extravagantly we love. This Resurrection Sunday, I am grateful again for the victorious kingdom mindset theology I was raised to believe. As we gathered, my sister Lori led us in Elevation Worship's The Blessing. And as we sang, He is for you, He is for you, He is for you, He is for you, I was overwhelmed with the extravagance of God's love for us. There are those who believe and preach that it was the wrath of God that drove Jesus to the cross. But I would offer this. It was not the wrath of God, but the love of God that chose this path. As my dad and grandpa used to tell us, the God that I believe in is not a God way off in heaven somewhere waiting with a croquet mallet, hoping for us to make a mistake so He can give us a whack. No, that's not who He is. How do you and I treat our toddlers when they fall? Do we kick them while they're down? No, we run to them. We rescue them. Sometimes slowly, because we want them to learn to rise up after a fall. But we do not abandon them. We keep watch. We teach. We encourage. We support. We love them extravagantly. Not because they're perfect, not because they're worthy, but because they are ours. This is exactly how God sees you and me, and why he sent his Son to die on the cross. As I listened to myself preparing this, I heard my brother Kent's influence and realized that Resurrection Sunday is a re-day. It is a day when we return to our spiritual roots. We reflect on the remarkable love of God as he works to restore us to himself, to strengthen our relationships with him and rescue us from the thraldom of sin and death and decay, to reconcile us from the fall of mankind and rejuvenate our spirits as we choose to receive and believe and grasp the reality once again of the power of the cross, the resurrection power that raised Christ Jesus from the dead, that is available to us today. A power that, when realized, stirs us to love extravagantly. Remember, on this Easter Sunday, that Jesus died for you and me, for all of us. And today, like every day, he loves us. He is risen. He is risen indeed. Let it be so.